So I'm David Wilkins. I'm the president and CEO of Zenapptic AI. I'm going to talk about using virtual production to drive audience engagement. We have a lot of examples, a lot of technical things that I'll try to step over pretty quickly. Examples are this set that you're seeing me standing in right now. This election set was designed by the Zenapptic creative team, and I'm going to show some examples, not elephants and giraffes necessarily in Times Square, but these are all kind of similar examples to what we do at Zenapptic and what we can do with virtual production. So elections, good example. Live sports, live news, good example. All along the way, we've been thinking about how we can take different technologies, combine those with creative to create really unique experiences. So we work with all the networks for all the Fortune 500 companies, a lot of education companies, a lot of retailers. And over the years, it was always sort of that same idea. We're taking live content, turning it into live graphics, and doing news and elections and sports. And then I came full circle. And now Zenapptic AI is taking all of those things that we learned, and we've built a platform that makes it easy to create immersive experiences for all kinds of different devices. And that's where we come to virtual production. Before I go too far in, I want to talk about how I see the broadcast industry. And I think this ties very closely to what we're here talking about with zero density and virtual production. You know, in the early days, there were 3 networks, everybody watched the same thing. Then cable came along, real-time content came along in the 2000s, smart TVs, social media, streaming services, bringing us to where we are today with remote workflows, remote audiences, and virtual production. Going forward, the story is very exciting for companies like me, like us. And what we're doing is taking everything we've learned, and audience are going to take content, they're going to demand to see content wherever, whenever, and however they want. So it's a very different world from the early days, which was really a one-way, one-to-many model where a couple of networks broadcast everything to the same people. It was a one-size-fits-all model. Very different from today, which is all about a two-way model where it's a one-to-many or a many-to-many kind of model where all these new things become possible. Connection, community, experience, and engagement, which is what I'm really going to talk about today. The last 2 points are really the most important part of my presentation: experience and engagement. Experiences are all around us. So everyone knows the Sphere here in Las Vegas. There's lots of other examples. It's all about taking content, making it available to others, sharing it as an experience. Experiences are immersive and dynamic. Experiences can be consumed anywhere. Experiences are for any kind of screen or device. And they're really a destination that users can interact with. So that word engagement keeps appearing over and over again. Experiences drive engagement, and engagement is really what I want to talk about today. So experience is where it starts, everything starts. As engagement goes up, all these other things happen. All these other things go up as well. Viewership goes up, attention, dwell time, brand awareness, audience participation, all goes up. And the bottom line is this slide here, where the value goes up. It might be actual dollars, it might be your ad revenue that goes up, it might be employee retention, employee satisfaction, customer experience, but that's what we're here talking about. That's what virtual production lets us do. And I'll talk about how we do that. The tools that we have to drive engagement are not just broadcast graphics. That's where we started. It's when we go to the next level, where we connect with people, right? We can create virtual spaces like this election set that I'm standing in right now, which allows us to create communities of users. If we can connect to everybody, people can share in this overall experience. So communities are really the building block behind everything I'm talking about. Real-time content, real-time data sources, letting people interact with content, letting them message back and forth and with the content on the screen, let them share that content with each other, let them leave the experience with that content on their phones, and gamification, which I'll talk about a little bit further on in the presentation today. But it's about rewarding people for watching and for interacting and doing the things that we want them to do during our virtual production. Some quick examples here. Everything here was designed by our creative team at Zenapptic. I'm going to talk about each of these in a little more detail in a second. Let me just let this video play. These virtual environments with live announcers, dynamic storytelling, live content, live corporate messaging, live interactions, live polling, all of these real-time things bring virtual production to the next level. Mobile phones, mobile interactivity, letting people interact with the content that they're seeing on screen in these virtual environments. So it's not just virtual sets, it's about creating connections with your audience and letting them share in what you're presenting. So some of the examples here at the show, at the booth here at Zero Density, are the XR stage. We've got F1 graphics, we've got the election graphics that we're showing here, more racing graphics. They're all good examples of things that we think of when we think of XR production, XR stages. But the next part, I really want to talk about examples. I want to show examples of engagement with the audience. And these are some of the things that I'll talk about. I'll go through them one by one. I won't spend too much time on any one of them. So interactivity, voting, interactive surveys, letting people interact with the content on the screen while they're watching the live broadcast. That's that two-way connection that virtual production lets us have with the audience. Voting on your phone, bringing in real-time data, bringing in live announcers, talking about that real-time data. It's still about that, creating that community in these virtual spaces. So virtual spaces can be anything. Branded environments that you invite people in to share the experience with you. Social media is always a huge part of this. It's always a great example of how we can interact with people. Live tweets on X, Facebook content, TikTok content. It brings this live dynamic that lets us connect with everything that we're showing. Using AI to drive some of these experiences, and AI is something I'll talk about a little bit later. There's a reason my company is called Zenapptic AI, because we're using AI to create these kinds of experiences for audiences. This is a simple selfie wall, but we're using AI to generate some of the content that you see on that screen right there. We have a concept I'm going to talk about a little bit, which we call dynamic storytelling. So storytelling has been around for a while. We talk about using graphics to create stories, but virtual production combined with some of these other things I'm talking about, let us create dynamic storytelling. Let us create these stories that are driven by the audience, driven by things that nobody knows until the real-time data comes in. And we call that dynamic storytelling. Having a feedback loop from the audience so we can get reactions live from people watching the virtual production is a great example. In this case, we're showing messages while the announcer's talking. It's live coming from the audience. This could be someone scanning a QR code on the output, getting a mobile app on their phone, and then interacting with what they're seeing on the live production. If you go a step further and take what's happening on your broadcast output, push it down onto other tools like Zoom and Teams and start bringing video conferencing into it, it opens up a whole other level of connection with the audience. So in this case, we've got a virtual set tied into a Zoom call. We've got remote participants who are driving the content that Heather Lewis, the CEO, is talking about on the call. We can bring in remote participants as well. This is a great opportunity to create this feeling of inclusiveness with people who are all in different locations, all participating in your virtual production. Those are some of the examples. I'm going to talk a little bit specifically about Zenapptic AI and the platform that we build that facilitates these kinds of virtual productions and experiences. So first of all, when we move out of broadcast, a lot of what we see in broadcast are big, large 3D graphics, custom designed. But if we're really going to try and do a repeatable model with virtual production, we need more templated content, more libraries of templates that can be repurposed. We need the ability to customize that content, customize those templates. We need features to make it immersive, where we connect with our audience and let them interact with the content that they're seeing on the screen. We need a real-time rendering engine, zero density in our case, where we can take that live content, turn it into visual, engaging graphics that then we can share in our production. And then often overlooked part of this is the back-end side of the story, which is the real-time analytics. Everything that's happening during your live production can be measured. It can be recorded, and then we can do very interesting things with that data, run statistical models on it, use it to control content, do all kinds of those kinds of things. All of these things together are not strictly broadcast graphics, but when you add them to your broadcast graphics, you end up with something that's a lot bigger than just a broadcast graphics engine. It's a real virtual production. I'll talk quickly about some of the features, presentation tools, the mobile apps, smart communities of users who are connected together, gesture controls, touch screens, different ways that users can interact with the content that they're seeing during the production, video conferencing tools for teleporting people into the live production with the presenter. integrating with external systems like Zoom and Teams and Google Meet, the ability to connect with the audience and create this engagement, this ongoing connection in real time, interactive games and gamification, these communities of users. All of this together are the features that I think make a virtual production a lot more than just a television broadcast. If we think about what's next, so virtual production is today, and we can do a lot of interesting things with that today. But if we move beyond broadcast television and start thinking of ways that broadcasters can connect with their audience using new technologies, new ways of reaching out, a lot of new ideas there. So we talk a lot about at-home broadcast experiences, the ability to take what's happening on TV and bring it into your living room. And then more than that, interact with it and create your own experience on top of that. In this case, this guy's watching a soccer match. He's got a virtual digital twin of the soccer stadium on his coffee table, and he's interacting with it. He's looking at his own virtual panels on the walls of his living room. Similar example where this guy's watching a football game, and he's basically switching his own show in his living room, and he's looking at the information that he cares about. Hyper-personalized experience that's driving the core broadcast with other things added on top of it. Similar example here for live news. This is an elections example. Again, the viewer is deciding what they want to see. They're drilling into the content. They're deciding what's the important part of the story that they want to see. Maybe there are other things behind the scenes like AI that I'll talk about in a second that are driving that as well. We do a lot at Zenapptic outside of broadcast as well, where we have people in stadiums, in physical spaces, interacting with virtual content from their phones. Today it's mobile phones doing that. In this case, we're using a lot of AR examples where people are interacting with a live sports event in addition to what's happening on the broadcast television. And then beyond broadcast, things like Vision Pro goggles, MetaQuest, Quest 3 goggles, Microsoft Teams, all these new technologies are coming along, and broadcasters need to be aware of them because they're extending what's happening with that core broadcast production. And then the last slide, something very near and dear to our heart at Zenapptic AI is artificial intelligence. And to us, AI means a few different things. It's not just about creating content on the screen, but that's part of it. It's about rule-based AI, changing the content on the screen based on AI feedback. It's about biometric AI. We're measuring what's happening in the audience, and we're using that to control what's happening on the screen. We're creating content, video content, 3D models, imagery on the screen. And then behind the scenes, we're watching everything that's going on that production, and we're using that to modify and enhance the production going forward. So AI, I think, is going to be a strong part of virtual production and audience engagement going forward. But the most important thing is this last slide, which I said earlier. Engagement is all about experiences. Experiences drive engagement. That's what we're all about at Zenapptic, using technology, using creative, using tools like zero density to create these immersive experiences.